Hey everybody, I'm Greg Soul, and this is Why Am I, a podcast where I talk to interesting people and try and trace a path to where they find themselves today. So my guest this go around is Judd Fink. As a child, he could speak to spirits, which is quite interesting in and of itself. But he let this side of him go as he grew, as one does, but finally reconnected with that part of him in his life coaching. So Judd's coaching seems to surround mostly like positive thinking and spirituality, right? I don't fully understand everything, but these seem to be key components, I think. So his mantra also seems to be, it's all learning, which I love. That's near and dear to me. So join us and learn a little bit more about how we are all just energy, which I think is kind of cool. So if you find this enlightening or entertaining, I would say please share this with a friend, right? Help this little corner of the internet grow. I'm trying to reach more people if I possibly can. And if nothing else, I hope you enjoy this chat with Judd. Judd, thank you for joining me on the Why Am I podcast today, bud.
Thank you for having me, Greg.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So one of my absolute favorite things to do, and I used to come up with some story where we ran into each other, but sometimes that would confuse people and they thought we needed to just like stay in this story. It's like, no. So usually I just kind of cut to the chase now. And whenever I meet people, oftentimes within the first maybe 5 or 6 minutes, my favorite thing to ask them is, who are you? So Judd, who are you, bud?
Who am I, right? Well, I've been defining that recently, and I got more defined in it yesterday, as a matter of fact. But I'm a lot of things. I'm a healer. I'm that's an all-encompassing word for me. I just want to help people. I'm a father as well. Got a 13-year-old son. Love him very much. Very important in my life. Man, I'm a lot of things. I used to be a mechanic. I left that job in December of last year, and didn't look back, and started my own business, and it's been up and down, which is normal, but things are looking good, so I'm going to continue. It's my purpose. It's truly my purpose. That's who I am. I'm following my purpose. I'm that dude.
Oh my gosh, you were dangerously close to a plaque in Hobby Lobby. Following my purpose. No, I like that. I genuinely enjoy that. Following my purpose. So you started out with, one, defining it. Like you've been defining who you are. So I take that to mean you were a mechanic and now you're a healer. That seems like a pretty big left turn. So where did that come from, man? And how is that to like redefine who you are and how you see yourself?
Well, all right. So from a really young age, I'm talking in the ballpark of 4 years old, I started experiencing things that were, energies, what I knew at the time as spirits, entities, whatever. Like they'd sit on my bed. My brother slept on the top bunk. Like I'd feel pressure, like them getting on the top bunk. No one's in the room, and stuff like that. I'd see things. And then I even had premonition dreams back then, like literally word for word conversations that would happen, and they would happen the next day. And that was probably when I was 5 or 6, when the first time that happened. And then it kind of goes to what you live, you're not thinking about it all the time or anything. You just know that that's like around, basically. You just kind of acknowledge it and you're like, okay, I'm going to live my life, And then, so I did that, and it's always been there. Like I never questioned, and there's a broad spectrum of opinions on this, but here's mine. As far as what God is, it's an essence, it's an energy, it's a consciousness. It's not some dude in the sky, anyway, who judges everyone and says, what you're doing is wrong, because nothing is right or wrong. No one is right or wrong. It's all opportunities to learn and grow. That's exactly what life is all about, And I didn't used to think this way. I used to be, pretty brash, arrogant. I mean, great friends with people still, but not necessarily the greatest people at times. Right? Like, cause you run with who you attract, right? So anyways, I had a lot of changing to do. I was arrogant because I was confident and athletic and all these things, and yay for me, right? Like, and it's good to have those things and good to be confident, but not in the way that I was, and made some poor choices in that. I mean, started selling drugs when I was 15 years old and did that till I was about 24. Fortunately never, got caught or anything like that. And, that built like an ego, right? I mean, think you're Mr. Untouchable, and you're certainly not. You're just another dude. But anyhow, through that, learning process and everything, and I'm going through this and still feeling these energies, but also dealing with trying to shut that off, and because I don't know who the hell I am, to be honest, at that point. And trying to shut all that off, and I'm using, selling, so I'm using drugs, and I'm also drinking heavily, and that, leads to all kinds of problems, other problems. And, not holding yourself accountable for things can be a really slippery slope. You compromise here and you compromise there, and it just, it can turn into a bad deal pretty quickly all the way around, And my ex-wife, I'd known her since she was 6 years old at that time, and she was along for the ride the entire time. We just got divorced just less than 2 years ago at this point. So she was, I put her through too much garbage, and I had a lot of changing to do. And that's what led into, okay, I got a lot of changing to do. And then Spirit is showing me all these signs left and right when I'm going through it, right? Series of numbers, angel numbers is what they're referred to as, signs all over the place, just stuff that is completely unexplainable, and but my mind at the time is all over the place because I don't know what life looks like at that time, because all I know is being married and being with her and all this stuff. So I'm terrified, right? And but through that was like the most growth I've ever had in my life. And it was trusting Spirit and trusting, that everything is going to be all right, because it truly is, because there's never a time where it's the worst thing ever. Like I said before, everything is an opportunity to learn and grow from. And I was definitely given that opportunity. And then I was like, yeah, I'm a mechanic, not the greatest, not passionate about it. I would do the job because it's what I got paid to do, but what do I want to do? Like, what do I want to do? So I knew I didn't want anyone to go through anything that I went through, and so in some way I went, meditations and all this stuff. It was like, I need to be a life coach. I need, in some form, I need to talk to people, help them, tell them my story. And, so that's what I did. I got certified in that. And, then maybe 6 months later, actually started building a website, all that stuff, getting clients. So here we are.
Here you are. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting journey, man. Well,
Yeah.
I've got lots of notes, lots of questions. So,
Yeah.
let's see where this, it's interesting. You said you had, a very brash, arrogant personality, I guess, in your youth. And I'm curious where that came from. Was that, what was your support system like? Were you kind of on your own and kind of having to take care of yourself a lot?
So, growing up, my dad left. I don't really remember my dad.
Yeah.
to be honest. He left when I was about 3. I do have minimal memories of him, but all of them are either violent or him getting, doing something that he shouldn't
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. I know what that's like. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, anyways, my mother is a single mother of two young boys at that time, my brother and myself. And she's just she's going through life too. I believe that at that time she's like 25 or so, you know? So she's also going through it, also growing and just trying to figure it out on her own. So I used to judge her for that because, she wasn't around a lot. Well, what she's doing is working and trying to, and trying to support us. So we're over at grandma and grandpa's all the time. And that's a whole different story. Wow, what I learned from that, but but yeah, support system was, immediate, wasn't immediate family. I didn't have another half family because, there is no dad, right?
Yeah.
And then the rest of them didn't really care because I guess that's just how things are, which is okay. That's their own journey. And it definitely helped make me who I am, though, shape the way that I think about things.
Yeah.
But not necessarily alone, but like alone in my mind, if that makes sense. Like, it was difficult at times, but,
Yeah.
but it was okay. Like I was never down and out, like, homeless or anything like that. That's never happened.
Yeah.
But it's definitely rough watching my mom go through things, and then my grandparents and the way they were. My grandparents were great to me, though. Great people to me, and I really appreciate them, what they did for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've had some of those same realizations. Like I was kind of a latchkey kid as well. His mom was always out working, doing the thing, and one thing I noticed is that I didn't have a lot of there wasn't a lot of emotional intelligence practiced in our house. It's like to understand what feelings are and how you deal with them. It's just like you're kind of left on your own to figure things out. And I've noticed some people that like grew up in similar situations developed like this brash persona, right? Like this impenetrable, bulletproof ego. Like you can't hurt me, because they basically had to raise themselves, and they need everybody to model what, how to deal with their emotions and stuff. So it's like, I'm just got to protect myself and however I can. And it's kind of wild how different people will come out of the same environment, but completely different,
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about perspective. Everything is about perspective.
Yeah. So you talked about spirits, like being able to actually like feel them kind of interact to some extent, like when you're a really little kid.
Yeah.
Did that persist all the way through, like to now, and you just sort of suppressed it, ignored it? Was it always there?
Yeah.
Or do you have to like be in the right space to like experience it?
So there's some things that have happened too. Like, so I know that's like where some of the drinking and drugs came from, because I'm trying to shut that off at that, so, but I didn't know that that's what I was doing. I just knew that like I'm uncomfortable and this helps, it was never a major issue. I never got in trouble for drinking, I got arrested really young for possession of marijuana, but big deal, but I never like had consequences for those things. I was really responsible overall with it and everything, just in my own space, right? So, but to answer your question, there's been events that have happened that are just like, okay, this is totally unexplainable, other than this is like something outside of something I cannot see, right? Even during this time of drinking and drugs and all that, right? So, for example, I have a great one where it was like 2 days before my birthday, and I was about to turn 20, and I had a Monte Carlo SS, and I'm coming around this curve on Highway 150, curve that I've taken. I grew up in the small town of Carlock, Illinois, and taking that curve, doing 80 and 90 many, many times at that point, you know. Well, this one particular time, it was wet out. I took the curve down like a race car driver and come out high, you know. Well, that's not what happened this time. It turned the rear end of my car around when I started to dive down, and it shot me into the ditch, and my rear end hit the ditch, and it catapulted me and flipped me end over end long ways several times. I got my seatbelt on and everything, and it landed on the wheels, but I walked out of that horrible accident without a scratch on. I mean, nothing happened, you know. That's astounding, you know, because it's literally front impact, rear impact, front impact, rear impact, you know, as I'm flipping and watching this whole thing happen. But it only lasted seconds, you know. It happened really quickly. But for that to happen, and other things too, like not being arrested for selling for as long as I did, and it was just insane. Like, and other people that's happening to them, but nothing is happening to me. You know, it's really like, what is going on here? And wow, you know. But as far as connecting with them, now I'm super open. Like before, and it's also so my ex at the time too, she didn't really believe in any of that stuff. And I'm like, well, this is, you know, definitely part of me. And every house that we've purchased, every house I've lived in, there's always something there. There's always energy. Well, then you come to realize, oh, it's because of me. They're attracted to me. I'm like light to them. Basically like moth to a flame type of deal. Because they want to communicate. They want to get their message out. And so there's, you know, clairvoyance, claircognizance, whatever, all the clairs, as far as that goes. Well, I've had different instances of literally all of them. So I can't really define necessarily, you know, one specific thing as far as that goes, but I've experienced all of them at different times. So, I mean, I've heard them audibly. I've heard them, you know, in my mind, and you feel the energy around you. I mean, it's undeniable, you know.
Yeah.
But then I also didn't know what to do with that even. And so I quit drinking and all that stuff. And so that's where and during my time of divorce is when it really turned off, times 10, you know. And hey, pay attention, you know, need to help, all this stuff. And I don't know what to do with it, you know. So my way of doing it was, you know, going to school, learning, you know, becoming a life coach, but that's not dealing with the other side. I know I got this stuff to do, but I don't know what. So I'm meeting these people, and I got a tarot reading from a female, and she's like, hey, you are like a shaman and stuff. And I'm like, what? You know, okay, I know what that is, but I don't know, you know, the specifics of it, of what that is, right? And you're all these things, you're very spiritual, you've had many lives and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I can understand that, you know. So, and that reading was on October 29th, okay? And October 29th of 21 is when that reading was. She's like, hey, you're a shaman, part of your job, your journey is to help, you know, them on the other side, right? Well, so that was the 29th, and I didn't mention this prior to this part of the story. I had a former coworker as a mechanic who had passed, and it was the 27th or 26th. He this dream was so vivid and real, you know, and it was him. and we're in his driveway, and he's trying to talk to me, but he can't get words out, right? Can't say them. It's like it was kind of like Charlie Brown's teacher, wah, 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 like that. Okay, and so anyways, I wake up from that dream, and then just days later, I'm talking to this tarot card reader, psychic, and explaining the stuff, and I tell her that story. She's like, okay, so Halloween is like when the veil is thinnest, so you should probably and prior to this, I'd been meditating and doing all this stuff as well. So I'm like, okay, I can do this. Like, it's like, if this is part of me, then I can do this. I can, So I set up my space, cleared the energy in the room, and then I sat down, meditated, created a circle, called in my protection, all this stuff. And what opened up was this, if the light in a prism is like a rainbow, right? Well, I went to this place where these colors are so vivid, right? I mean, they're so bright. But the room is endless. There's no end. It's like this wall, and it's reaching to the sky, but there isn't even necessarily a sky there. It's just like there's no clouds or anything. But as I'm standing there, like, I'm fully me, and I'm witnessing these faces, and they don't have full bodies. Okay, they're just faces, and they're in black and white, but there's all this vivid color surrounding. Okay, and there was one female that came up to me, and she started communicating with me, and I started talking to her. She wasn't the greatest person in life. She was young, was killed in a car accident. She knows that she's dead, but she's afraid to move on because she didn't treat people very well. Okay. So she's worried about, going to hell. And I said, that's not how it works. That is not how it works. You get another shot. It's all learning. Even on the other side, they're still learning, We get every opportunity to learn here. That's why we get so many lives. And I'll have more to say about that too. Like, it's because time is not linear in that way. But anyhow, I had never done this before, obviously, because first shaman event in my life. So I'm hearing her story and explaining her, making her more comfortable, and so then I asked God to open up the light, and I get emotional every time I talk. Like, that feeling was just love. It was just pure love, and perfect. Yeah. And so then she went, and it wasn't even seconds. I mean, seconds later, where Carl, my former coworker, he was right there, but he was fully him. And I felt his energy because, people that are familiar, you're familiar with their energy. At least I am, and it was him, and he was full body, fully in color and everything. We had a long conversation, because it'd been a minute. And, he was afraid because he did take his own life, and the way he was raised was, to believe that you go to hell,
right,
for doing that. And that's simply not how it works. And so made him a lot more comfortable, and he went, and I, closed it up. And that was the first time of doing that. And so yeah, there you go. There's like some answer for you. I know I'm all over the place because I'm trying to,
No, I get it. That's interesting. I mean, do you feel like that gave you some closure for your friend?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because I assume I haven't lost anybody super close to me from suicide. Sort of people peripherally a little bit, but I assume that it always feels, unfinished. Like, just...
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like so many things unsaid, and yeah. Amazing opportunity for closure there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was more about him. Like
Yeah.
I really have a I really have a gift of especially now, not before, because I had a lot of learning to do before, but being able to look at things, I mean literally everything objectively and not have any judgment because everybody is on their own path, whatever that is to them. And no one person is better than any other person.
Yeah.
We're all humans, you know? And the thought that like someone is wrong for what they believe or what they think or what is just ridiculous. But I get it because we're all trained to think that way. We're all programmed that way. You know, your parents matter. your, like your environment matters. All that stuff very much impacts the way that you think. And we see it all over the place. And that's why there's so much division now because they're, it's just unfortunate. It's just unfortunate.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I'm very much a live and let live kind of person. I'm not sure if that falls into the same. I'm also of do no harm, right? I think, you're not doing anything wrong unless you're hurting other people. Like if you're hurting other people,
of course,
you know what I mean? It's like, you got to still protect others from that stuff. But I think, to your point, you're right. Like your environment, I was reading this book called Far from the Tree, and it was talking about how much your DNA has to do with who you become. And essentially most of the studies they've done so far show that about 50% of who you are is baked into your body. And then, the rest of it is basically the environment in which you're raised in, and the people around you. So that is a hefty chunk of who you become just solely based on your geography. Where the lottery happened to land you, can change that stuff so much.
Yeah. That's, religious beliefs and all that stuff. Like, that there's just so much division there and it's all about control and being right. I'm right. This is because this is what I believe. Well, that's the power of belief too, right? I mean, no one's going to tell you that you're wrong. And, F you if you disagree. Right?
Yeah, like having blind faith in something. Like, you believe in it in the face of opposing, like, empirical evidence, and you still want to believe this thing. That's faith, right? Like, I believe it no matter what anybody says. And that can sometimes help people survive, and sometimes it can be a really bad habit.
Depending, for sure, right? Yeah. For sure.
That's interesting. So you were talking about, at first, it sounded, because you mentioned angels and angel numbers, and so I was thinking these people that, or these spirits that you're interacting with, angels maybe, but are angels simply people that have passed, or those two different things? Like, I genuinely am not really sure.
The best way I can say this is that, and this all comes down to your beliefs and what you've been taught, right? So the form of an angel to me might be a different form than someone else in their mind, right? Okay, so form doesn't matter because it's all literally the same thing. It's all energy, all right? So, but these people, to answer your question, they are just energy. What it is.
Yeah.
So, but yes, they are your ancestors, your relatives, or they're just angels. Like they were born in that energy, in that place. So, what we know as angels, at least, what we're told. So, but yeah, or guides. So guides are also assigned to you, like, because they're good at this one thing that you need to work on. So angels are the same way. And of course your ancestors are just that, right? Relatives. So, and they want to help too. You just got to be open to this stuff. And that's it. Some people are more inclined to have these things, I'll call them gifts for lack of a better word, but to have these gifts, they're more inclined because of their openness. Does that make sense? Like their openness to just accept, like, and be non-judgmental about it. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. Yeah, it's energy. It's all energy, and it sounds like you can ascribe whatever name you want to it, whether it be deity, God, you know, angel, you know, whatever. It's just it's energy that happens to be like. Do you think it's how would you? Cause you talked about the veil, right? Like, so a separation between our world and theirs. Is that kind of what you ascribe to? There's like a different sort of side to things that we just can't see.
Absolutely. And actually, what is important, or what I say, actually, what I believe is important, right, is more important is the things that you don't see, because if you're conscious of that, right, it's just pure belief, and that's all that matters. I mean, look at what's happening right now all around. You know what I mean? What you believe is what you see, right? If you see things negatively, if you see the world as a negative place, then that's exactly what it is. If you see the world as a positive place, then that's exactly what it is, right? So it's all about how you think. It's all about perspective. Absolutely everything is about that. So, but to answer your question about, do I believe that like when the veil is thinnest, you know, it's not, sure, there are times where it's easier to communicate than it is at other times. But also you can say that, well, that's a belief, which it 100% is. And I'm still telling you that I do believe that on these days it's easier to communicate. Okay. And then other people would say, no, I believe it's these days. Like, who cares? You know? Like, so,
Yeah.
But, right?
Yeah, for sure. And as far as I'm sure with your beliefs, you run into a lot of opposition, but I'm definitely of the opinion that I think this is true for you, right? Whether anybody wants to believe it or not, it's brought positivity to your life. Because like, I'm a big fan of positivity too. Positive thinking. I think positivity leads to positivity, and like you said, negativity, just you're going to find more negative things in the world, and like that doesn't necessarily benefit anybody. But
No.
I do think sometimes just staying more open, right? Just being open to other people and what they believe and more accepting. Dude,
Absolutely.
how much better would it be walking around if I just accepted you for who you were and didn't want you to fit into some mold or you're doing it wrong. It's like, am I? I'm happy.
Why?
You know?
Actually, the greatest minds who've ever lived have been misunderstood. You know, the greatest minds who have ever lived. And that's a good thing. You know, so if you're misunderstood, you're on the right track, because you're not just one of the people who are like, okay, I'll listen. I won't make decisions for myself. You know, I mean, we have the greatest thing in the universe in our brains. It is so powerful. We can do anything with it. Anything at all. And nothing is impossible. Nothing. You just have to remain positive, believe that, you know, the future that you want, believe it's going to happen, and then take the steps forward to actually make it happen. That's what it is. And you attract these things, and it's through positivity, you know, like we just mentioned. It's through that. It's through your belief, you know. That's how things happen. I mean, look at the world, you know, all the buildings, all the streets, all the whatever you want to talk about. It all came from someone's imagination. So I encourage people to have the biggest imagination that you possibly can, because, you know, you're the only one holding yourself back if you think otherwise.
True enough.
You know?
True enough, man. So you said that there was kind of like the last couple of years, there's kind of, you've been defining who you are and figuring all of that out. It kind of sounds like there was maybe like a turning point, or kind of just like a moment of awakening. Was it that tarot reading where you found out you were a shaman, you know, of sorts?
Yeah. So awakening is not like a one time, like, you know, this one day I had an awakening. It's a long, I'm still in it, you know. I'm very open to everything, very open. So always learning, always learning. And so for example, yesterday I had to go to Davenport, Iowa, which is about a 2-hour drive from where I am. And I was asked to remove a negative energy from an individual, like through Reiki, if you're familiar with what that is. I'm certified in Reiki and everything, and we needed 3 people. Former client of mine, or former / current client of mine called me, asked me to go, and yeah, I mean that was a hell of an experience that I had yesterday. It was a new thing for me as far as that goes because of what I encountered. But I'm still waving that stuff off. I'm still like shedding that negative energy like right now.
If you're going to pull it from somebody else, do you have to bring it into yourself? Is it that kind of thing?
It doesn't have to, but like that's kind of what just happened. Yeah. So remember me mentioning opening up the light before? Well, anything that is negative, all it wants is love. It just wants to be loved, just like anything, you know? So that was the approach. That's the approach to anything. You know, so I tried that, opening up the light, but all I saw in my third eye was just black. It was just darkness. Like I couldn't even get there, So then it just went in. I started shaking and got really nauseous, and pulled it into me and still shedding that. I think I got it out last night, but yeah. So there's another story for defining things.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like new experiences. Like I don't think anyone should be defined. Of course, you define aspects of yourself, but we're all evolving. We're all, learning. So who cares about a definition? You choose who you are. You choose the definition of yourself, not somebody else. So
that's something I've kind of thought about a little bit over time. There's this, I don't know, it's more like an experience. It's this, you can find it on, I think it's on Hulu. It's called In and of Itself. It's by this guy named Derek Delgadio. But one of the core components is that, or at least my translation is, you see yourself as one thing. Like inside of you, you're the only person in the whole world who knows who you really are, right? There's all these people that surround you. There's friends that see you as one Judd, right? Your family sees you as another Judd.
Absolutely.
And probably your parents see you as a different Judd. Your coworkers, right? The people at the bank. But you're the only one who really knows who you are. Uh-huh. And it's kind of, to me, it's sort of turned into this exercise of just show the world who you are all the time. And it's almost like you said, like moth to the flame. The people who need you will find you if you just
oh my gosh
truly but and sometimes you'll also find that the people who find you needed something from them too, so it's
absolutely
it's not always a one-way relationship. Sometimes it cuts both ways, but it's how do you really find who you are, and then two, how do you get the bravery to actually show the world?
You just gotta leap, man. You just got to take the leap. I mean, and overcoming fear is a hell of a thing. I mean, I'm dealing with it right now. Okay, so in the next room over, I mean, I've got like real deal podcast room, like 4 camera angles, a bunch of, SM7Bs. I've got 5 of those. Like, dude, like it's all real deal stuff.
That's a legit setup, man.
Yeah, man. And I haven't started it yet, and I keep running into little issues, and I also trust in divine timing as well, right?
Hey.
And so I'm like, okay, maybe it's not time. Well, it's time. It's time, and this is gonna work. And actually, I'm recording my first one this weekend.
Congrats, man.
Yeah, and the podcast is called Spiritual AF as well. But yeah, on the other side of fear is, victory in however you want to look at it, because you're learning. Even if you fail, you're learning. So what? You don't know what you're made of until you take the shot, right? I mean, come on. But it's way easier to be complacent, And so many people are, like the majority of people are, it's the misunderstood people, the great minds and stuff, who are willing to say, no, this is what I think, or whatever. Not necessarily in that's the only way, right? But there's plenty of ways. I just go back to that because that's amazing. I just saw that the other day. That frame of thinking.
Yeah, man, for sure. Like for me, what I found on the other side of fear is a whole lot of fun. So
exactly,
like going into the unknown, like where I don't know what's going to happen, is exciting.
Yeah, man.
Which is so crazy because I used to be so terrified of literally everything in the world. Like even just, moderately sized groups of people brought me anxiety. And now the opportunity to stand up in front of a giant group of people and talk, like, gets me so juiced. The idea that you can change your perspective so much that you actually crave change. You like the excitement of it. Like I love this. I love not knowing who's going to sit in front of me. Like the idea that there's going to be a human that's going to unfold in front of me. Lauren told me something really amazing. She said there's not a person you wouldn't love if you could read the story or read their story, of like their life. And I find that so true every time I talk to a new person.
Yeah, I believe that. Absolutely.
Love it, man. But yeah, like you're living proof of it because it sounds like your truth that you found is very counterculture right now. I mean, obviously the people that need you are finding you, but it's probably hard to also get the message out without getting squashed, and yet you persist, right?
I don't care. Like that's the other side of fear too, right? So, and I'm still dealing with that, but I don't care. You can't. If you're going to do what you need to do, then you cannot care about what other people are saying. You can't. It's impossible.
That's so dope. One of my favorite people, Rude Paul Charles, said, what other people think of me is none of my business.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. It doesn't matter. What you think of yourself matters. Are you doing what you need to do? Are you fulfilling yourself? Are you fulfilling your purpose or what you think your purpose is? Who cares? Figure it out. Take 20 chances. Take 50 chances. Take more.
Yeah.
So,
every time I fail, I just learn a new way of not doing that thing. So it just gets me closer to success the next time. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I like it. But also, like, if I try something for the first time and I succeed, I don't think I really learn anything. Nothing really sticks, But if I fail 10, 15 times over, I'm really going to remember how to do that thing. And I'm going to be very good at it.
Yeah, actually, you're right. It's not as interesting if you're just immediately good at it. Right?
Yeah. Like, get that success moment where you pump your fist. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But you feel like just like small technicalities have kind of held you back from the podcast? Is it you're afraid like it won't be good enough? Like what's been really squashing you?
Actually, it's just getting out there more. Like I'm on social media, but I'm not posting a bunch. I'm not, I haven't actually posted anything on social media in the last roughly 3 months, in the ballpark there. But like I'm also very comfortable. So that's making an excuse, and that's a bunch of garbage, actually, So excuses be damned. I'm moving forward, and doing this now. So yeah, but technicalities, there was a lot of them, man, because like I've got a 12-channel mixer over there too, and just getting all that to jive together, and with this program and that program. It was a thing. It's a thing. I'm not the most computer savvy person, but people. But also the people are coming in to help me with that stuff too.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
So Spiritual AF, tell me about it. Like how do you? Because this is the fun part for me when somebody's just about to start something. Because like with any artistic endeavor, because I consider podcasting somewhat artistic. You're gonna have an idea of where it's gonna go, and then I want to talk to you. I want to send you an email or a text or something 6 months from now and say, what does it look like now? like to you, because
Oh yeah.
it always morphs and molds, right? It knows what it's going to be, and it slowly tells you what it's going to become. And so I'm curious, what is it like in your head now? Like, what does this thing look like?
Oh man, that's hard to say. I'm gonna find out, on Saturday, right? Like I'm just gonna let it be what it is and just be naturally me, and I'll let the guests be naturally them, just like this right now.
Mm.
And
What
then
kind of guests are you going to have on? Like clients, former clients, maybe just people in the industry, or?
well, all kinds of people. I mean, I'm gonna have the dude who cuts my hair on actually,
Baller.
because he's spiritual and everything. He's got a story to tell, right? So that's how I'm looking at things. And other business, other spiritual people, business owners and stuff like that too, of course. I mean, everybody's got a story, man, right? And they should be told. We all learn from other people's stories as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's the deal. Like, I love hearing other people's stories too. I mean, I love helping, helping people grow. So it's certainly I have no doubt. I mean, yeah, certainly my purpose to do so.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I like you've said it so many times already. It's all learning. Everything is just learning. Like, where did that come from? Like, has that always been your mantra? Or is that like something that's kind of new?
Man. I was really, no, in my process of learning, right? I used to think, positively or negatively or whatever, just based on what was outside of me, like circumstances and stuff. And then I guess to the point where it got to the point with me where I just started thinking completely differently. Like, I'm the one who can actually, drive this thing. I'm the one who makes the choices in my life, So thinking about it in that way, nothing is positive or negative. It's all learning. If there is no positive, there is no negative, that would insinuate, right and wrong. There is no right and wrong. Even, everyone has hard lines for things like, the extreme topics like, child abuse and stuff like that. Well, the person, the aggressor in that situation also has a story of why he's doing what he's doing. He wasn't born that way, It was learned behavior, and then he created a mask, that was necessary for him. And then, down the line somewhere, he decided to act on this, whatever it is. There's a story there. People aren't just born. People are born good. We are all good people. It's all learned behavior and defense mechanisms and masks that we wear and personalities that we create out of necessity because of our situations. That's what it is. And we can all be, as long as people are open and honest, it can all be taken care of. But that's a that's a large hill. That's a large mountain to climb,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so even those people, I'm not saying that those, in the terms of right and wrong, I'm not saying what they're doing is right. I'm just saying that there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I believe very similar. I think in that regard, it's like it's the old adage, hurt people sort
Exactly.
of thing, and I've heard people, and if this helps you get through the night, I mean, that's okay and all that stuff. But sometimes when somebody does something really bad, they just want to call them evil, right?
Exactly.
To me, that releases all other external forces. It's just evil inside of this person, where
Exactly.
that completely discounts like them growing up as a child, impoverished and abused for the entirety of their life, and then they get older and they repeat the cycle. Well, this person's just evil. It's like, are they though?
No, they're
right?
not.
Yeah. It's just they're really, really broken and damaged, and they're just repeating the cycle. And I think it's understated how much trauma and damage can influence a person's behaviors. And
Absolutely.
it doesn't mean like we kind of talked about earlier, it doesn't mean you forgive somebody of doing some horrible transgression, but it does mean you can help understand it a little bit, and maybe help prevent those cycles from repeating in other people, maybe people around you, maybe people in your community, you know?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And like the thing about forgiveness too is, you know, it's just very freeing, no matter what had been done to you. I mean, if you look at things in exactly what I just said, you know, there's a reason for their actions. There's a reason that they were triggered to do whatever they did, you know, that in your term, evil, right? Well, that's why it's, you know, at least for me. I mean, of course, you can be upset, whatever, and move through those things on your own, with your own thoughts. But I mean, forgiveness is a great thing, you know. And as long as you're holding on to that stuff, you're just hurting yourself. It makes it very hard for you to move forward with things. I mean, depression, you know, it causes a lot of that. You know, your non-forgiveness actually is, yeah. It makes life very difficult when you don't forgive people.
I've never thought about it in those terms. Like, not letting things go is only hurting you. It's obviously it's not impacting the person that caused the harm to begin with. I mean, they don't see any of that. They don't care about any of that. It's only hurting you. That's an amazing way of looking at it. I've never put it in those terms. Huh. Yeah. Is that one that you know personally? Like you've had to learn to forgive?
Oh yeah. You know, it's just like I mentioned before, that ability to look at everything objectively, and I mean everything. You know, like being very open, very very open to every perspective, every thought of someone else, because there's a reason for these thoughts. There's a reason for everything. That's why everybody needs to tell their story, and I'd love to hear it. You know, like I love to hear people's stories, because everybody, and not that, you know, everyone's broken and damaged or whatever, you know, everybody's going to live their life how they live it, but it can be lived better, you know, and it's a process. It's a process. We're all here to learn.
Yeah. You know, something I've learned too is, at least through personal experience and some of the people around me, is like, if I was capable of just magically fixing the things that were wrong with me, guess what? I would have done it years ago. I wouldn't be like sitting here in this, like feeling this way all that. Like, if I was capable of just doing it all alone, guess what? I bet I would. You know, the only way I've actually made growth is through reading or through discussions with people like you or people around me, people with different viewpoints, right? People that have seen other parts of the world that I can just, you know, bounce things off of. So but it's so hard. It's so incredibly hard to be vulnerable like that, right? To like say, here's this thing I'm struggling with.
Oh man, that's the key to all of it, actually. Like even with my clients, like I'll tell them a story, very personal story about myself. It isn't the greatest story to tell, right? But if that helps that individual, then that's what's necessary to say. If that, you know, I mean, I've had some great breakthroughs because of my personal stories. So, you know, but it's just hope and being able to get through stuff. As long as you give somebody hope, I mean, the possibilities are endless, because the definition of hope is the constant expectation of good. So if you're constantly thinking good, then what's stopping you from growing?
Constant expectation of good. I like your definitions of stuff, bud. I'm making notes here. I have these things I call asterisks. Whenever somebody says something I like, I put an asterisk by it. I write it down. You got a lot of asterisks today. It's a lot of good stuff, man. I dig that. But you know, I've noticed a lot of myself too. Like if I can share something personal of mine, and it somehow helps somebody else, or somehow give somebody else permission to share something that's really been, you know, because that's human protocol, right? It's the way we're designed. You know, you have this expectation of reciprocation. So if I give you something of me, like there's almost this understood that you're going to give me something of you, and sometimes that can be so cathartic for people to say it out loud. You know, like I don't have an inner monologue. I've learned that some people, so if you've ever watched the show Scrubs, like Zach Braff, always is like talking in his head. And I was like, what an interesting plot device they invented for this. Because nobody really does it. Well, it turns out there's lots of people that do it. I'm just not one of the individuals that actually think inside there. So the only time I really work through anything is when I say it out loud. I've learned that. It's so bizarre. That's the only way I process stuff. So for people like me, I genuinely will never work on anything or process anything unless there's another person for me to bounce that off of. And sometimes that's been teased out of me by other people, like that were patient enough, especially my partner, my wife. She has been very patient with me for a number of years. And just the idea that it's so scary to do that. But you, Judd, you seem like somebody who's very genuinely easy to talk to and very welcoming. And you kind of, you do have this magnetic bit of your personality where it seems like I could see why people would want to share that with you. How do you find most of your people, right, that you're helping, that you're healing? Like, how did the most of those come to you?
Well, it's like mostly word of mouth, because I'm not out there like that, you know. For now, it's word of mouth, you know, because I have a website, spiritualpathcoaching.com. I don't even have any pictures on there right now, you know, but I'm just doing my thing, and I'm comfortable, you know, like, but I do need to grow more. Like, I'll say that I want to help more people.
Yeah,
than I do, you know, and need to come out of this shell that I've been in. And that's truth, you know. On the other side of fear is victory, right? So I'm gonna be damn victorious is what I am. Yeah, I am now. But you know, so but yeah.
So that's your measuring stick, right? Because everybody has something different that they measure their success by, right? Some people is how many cars do I have? How big is my house? Yours, it sounds like it's how many people have I helped?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other. So as long as you're doing what makes you feel good and you're in that energy, because everything is energy, you're in that energy of flow. Those other things that you desire, that you like, you know, say you like shoes or guitars or whatever your deal is, you know, that money will come for you to purchase those things. Like it, as long as you're doing your thing, it'll come. As long as you're in your element, whatever that is, because everyone's different, you know. Like, it's actually the law of attraction, if you're familiar with that at all. Like, it's just, you know, believing, visualizing it, and taking the steps forward to make it happen. And trusting. And it's about belief. Everything comes down to belief and perspective. Everything.
I like that. Everything comes down to belief and perspective. Are you big into like the vision boards and stuff like that? I learned about those a couple of years ago.
So I've seen vision boards of people, you know, people's vision boards, excuse me. I've never taken the time to make one, but I just have this vision in my mind of what my future is, you know. But if a vision board worked for somebody, then make them. Definitely make them. You know, do your thing, whatever that is. But the vision board is a reminder to them, you know, just every day to look at it, to visualize your future that you want. But I feel it's more powerful, at least for me, to actually have that image in your mind. Not everybody can visualize like that, though. So that's why there are things like vision boards and stuff. So, yeah.
Power of visualization. I've never really tried it. I've always just kind of existed. I think I'm kind of, I'm something of like a computer. I just exist in the world, and as problems come, I solve them and then categorize them into priorities and then move through.
That's fine.
It's a system that super works for me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
But it's important to not, like, you can or anyone can define certain aspects of yourself, you know, but it's important to stay open to growth. You know, that's what life is. We're all here to learn and grow.
Well, staying open, you mentioned that a couple of times too. And I'm curious, you know how you have this attraction for spirits. Usually they just kind of come to you. Is that something that other people can learn, or do you think it's an innate ability that's just in some people?
I think that we can learn to do anything. I think that that's definitely a trainable, growable thing. Because what you set your intention toward and work toward is what you're putting your energy toward is what you'll achieve. You'll plant the seeds and their seeds will grow in there. If somebody wants to develop their, psychic abilities, then that's what they'll do. And everyone has some gift of like that. Everyone does. It's just whether they acknowledge it or not, whether they're open to it or not. And, mine was kind of like from a very young age. So it's, but it's not a constant thing. I learned how to set boundaries now with that, because you can be like bombarded at times and think you're a nutcase. You're not a nutcase, that's, but no, I'm also not saying that like, everyone has, like, there are definitely people that need larger forms of help, like when they hear voices and stuff like that. But yeah, you get what I'm saying. There is definitely a separation. Yeah,
for sure. Is it when you're meditating? Is it a kind of a visual experience, or well, no? Because you said you've had audio experiences as well. I was just curious. Is it mostly like feelings based? Like you can feel it in your emotions or things like that, versus kind of tangible.
I can feel it in my body too. Like it's visualization. It's seeing them in my third eye meditate. When I'm meditating, I don't even have to be meditating sometimes, and it's just happening. Because I move around and there's spirit everywhere. So, and since everything is energy, it's easy to connect for me because I'm open. So I think I experience all these different forms of it because I'm so open. So yeah, like I see I've heard it, audibly, like someone is talking, and I've also heard it in my mind, and I've, definitely visualized it. I've definitely seen it with my eyes too. Like that's a spirit, that's a ghost of something, but it's just energy. It's just how they're presenting themselves to you. And also that's their deal too, how they are doing it, how they know how to do it. They're learning too. So,
that's cool. That's cool. Always learning. It's all learning. I'm sorry. That was your line. It's all learning. I dig that. All right, man. Well, I'll tell you what, we're coming up close to time, Judd, and I want to be very respectful of your time. First I want to say thank you, man. Like, I couldn't have asked you to be any more open and honest and sharing. That's super dope. I really enjoyed talking to you. And I definitely see why people would come to you to have conversations. But right here at the end, I'm going to ask you, is there anything you would like to promote? Obviously your website, maybe this new podcast, because this is going to come out in a couple of weeks. So I'm curious to see if there'd be an episode of that out yet. Yeah.
So my podcast is going to be called Spiritual AF. It's going to be on, look on the platforms for that, Spotify, Apple. And also my website is spiritualpathcoaching.com. You can get in touch with me on there. jfink at spiritualpathcoaching.com was my email. And yeah, I'm on social media. Just Judd Fink is my name. You'll find me on there. Instagram, Facebook, and that stuff. But yeah, man. Like, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
great. I enjoyed it too.
Yeah,
quite
absolutely.
A bit.
Well, good, man. I'm glad. That was a positive experience. Let me hit stop on all this stuff real quick.